All right, let's jump into it. We're looking at a topic today that's become, well, a really fascinating and sometimes kind of complicated part of modern digital life, sexting.
Yeah, it's right where technology meets intimacy. And it immediately brings up some vital questions, things about boundaries, trust, even legality that maybe most people don't fully grasp.
That's exactly right. So for this deep dive, we've pulled from quite a diverse set of sources. We've got a really candid online discussion from a popular dating advice forum. We've also got official New York State legal statutes, analyses of sexting laws.
Right, the hard legal stuff.
And extensive statistical surveys covering everything, really.
Sure.
Prevalence, motivations, the works.
So our mission here is to basically extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from all that. We want to help you understand just how common sexting really is, why people actually do it, and crucially, the very real risks.
Yeah, the personal and legal risks.
Exactly. We're aiming to give you a clear, comprehensive picture, without just drowning you in data.
Okay, so let's kick things off with that big question, the one that started that whole Reddit thread we looked at. How common is it to send or receive nudes while casually dating?
Right.
And the original poster, she was a 29-year-old woman just genuinely wondering, is this a normal part of most people's dating experience now?
And what's fascinating there in those Reddit answers is how they reflect this real tension. It's like a tug of war between how common people think it is and how comfortable individuals actually are with it.
Yeah, you saw that split, right? Some users were quick to say, oh yeah, pretty common. But then they'd immediately add something like, but that isn't the benchmark of it being a good idea.
Exactly. Or others just noting it's very popular among younger generations.
And the statistics we dug into, they really back up that common perception, especially as age increases. We found one major poll. It had found a third of all Americans surveyed admitted sending an intimate photo.
A third. That's a huge number.
It is, isn't it? So how do those self-reported numbers compare then to the estimates we see for different age groups? What does that tell us about the actual prevalence?
Well, it tells us it's probably even more widespread than many might think, because while a third of all Americans is significant, the estimates specifically for sending sexts, they show a really clear rise with age. So we're looking at maybe 7 to 9% of older teens, say 14 to 17, sending them.
Right.
But then those percentages, they jump up to 20% or even more for young adults, like 18 to 26.
Wow, okay. So a big jump.
A big jump. And for receiving a sext, it's even higher. We're talking up to 30% for 17-year-olds receiving one.
30%.
And then a striking 46% for young adults aged 20 to 26.
So yeah, nearly half of young adults have received one.
Yeah.
That's quite something. And for those who are actually doing it, sending them, it's clearly not just a one-off thing.
No, not at all. Over half of those who send intimate photos, they do it at least once a week.
Once a week.
And another 29% send them monthly or even more often. So it really makes it a fairly visible activity among teens and young adults.
So visible that nearly half of teens and 2/3 of young adults actually believe it's common for their age group. They perceive it that way themselves.
Exactly. The perception matches the stats there. Hashtag why people send and who receives them.
Okay, so with that picture, that understanding of just how incredibly common this is, it naturally leads to the next big question, the one our Reddit poster was kind of subtly asking. Why?
Right.
What's driving it?
What's actually driving people to share these really intimate images?
Well, one survey we looked at highlighted several key reasons. About 46% cited long-distance relationships.
Okay, that makes sense. Maintaining intimacy.
Yeah, exactly. Then 45% simply said they were asked by their partner.
Just straight up asked.
And 44% did it because, well, they felt attractive. A bit of a confidence boost, maybe.
Interesting.
And also interesting, a significant 42% just said they felt like it.
Felt like it. Yeah. Which suggests maybe a more spontaneous thing, or I don't know, curiosity-driven.
Yeah, I felt like it. Reason really stands out to me. Now, if we dig deeper into the motivations specifically for teen sexters, the reasons shift a little, right?
They do. For teens, it was often about being fun flirtatious. A whopping 63% said that.
Wow, okay.
It was also about offering a sexy present for their boyfriend or girlfriend. That was 43%.
The gift. Okay.
Yeah. Or even to get a guy girl's attention. That was 25%. Or simply to feel sexy, 24%.
So it sounds like this blend of things.
Yeah.
Connection, gifting, attention, self-affirmation.
It certainly seems like a mix. And this leads us right into thinking about who the intended recipients are.
Yeah, who are they sending these to?
Well, The vast majority of sexts from teens, we're talking between 60 to 69%, they are sent to a current boyfriend or girlfriend.
Okay, so mostly within established relationships.
Mostly. However, there's a notable percentage, somewhere between 18 and 30% of teen sexters, who also send them to someone they're just interested in dating, or maybe have a crush on.
Ah, okay. So it's not exclusively for established partners. And it gets even broader than that, doesn't it?
It does. Our sources show between 11 and 27% of teens send sex to just good friends.
Good friends, really.
Yep. And then smaller percentages, up to maybe 15%, even send them to people they only knew online or someone they literally just met.
Wow. Okay, that last one.
Yeah.
That sounds particularly risky.
And that's exactly where things start to get much more serious.
Right, because despite how common we've just established sexting is, our sources reveal some pretty significant worries. Worries about privacy, about reputation, things anyone considering this really needs to hear.
Absolutely. And these concerns are widespread. Look, 4 out of 5 Americans worry their intimate pictures could fall into the wrong hands.
4 out of 5, that's huge.
It is. And nearly 70% are concerned these images might be held against them somehow. What's really critical here, though, is the almost universal agreement we found. Among experts, among people who've actually experienced this, the advice is stark. If an image goes on the internet in any form, assume that it is publicly available.
Wow. Assume it's public. That's a strong warning.
It is, and for very good reason, unfortunately.
Yeah, tell me about it. Here's a statistic that genuinely surprised me. Nearly 3/4, 75%, of those who shared intimate photos later found they were leaked or shared without their permission.
3/4. It's a staggering number, isn't it? Far higher than most people would probably guess.
Much higher.
And this widespread violation of trust, it often leads to what some experts aptly call virtual slander.
Virtual slander. Okay.
Yeah. And the stories, they frequently follow this really disheartening formula. A couple shares images, maybe things are good.
Right.
Then they break up. And one partner, often feeling spurned or angry, deliberately spreads those private images to shame the other person.
That's awful.
It is. And sometimes it can escalate even further into what's called sextortion, using the pictures as a form of blackmail, basically. Leverage.
Okay. So, given all that, what does this mean for someone trying to, mitigate these risks if they still choose to engage in this? Our sources had some advice, right? Practical, maybe, but limited.
Yeah. Some practical tips, though none are foolproof. Things like maybe hide your face in the photo, or distinctive tattoos, birthmarks, anything identifiable.
Right. Deniability?
Kind of. And also communicating really clear expectations with the recipient about saving pictures. That's key.
Though it's worth noting, isn't it, that even with apps like Snapchat that have timers.
Oh, absolutely. Those timers can be easily bypassed. Screenshots, screen recordings. The tech isn't a guarantee of privacy.
Good point. So the tech limits are real.
Definitely. And this actually leads to an interesting question that came up. If you're sending, should you maybe also be receiving? Like, does mutual sharing create vulnerability?
Like mutually assured destruction, almost.
Sort of, yeah. Some experts suggest that reciprocal sharing might create a sense of mutual vulnerability, maybe acting as a deterrent to leaking them later. It's a theory. Ultimately, though, for actually storing these images safely if you have them, mobile security products are the recommendation. Things like photo vaults, that allow encrypted storage protected by passcodes or Face ID.
So something much safer than just your regular camera roll.
Exactly. Much safer. Hashtag the impact on relationships and self-perception.
Okay, so beyond those really tangible risks of privacy breaches, leaks, slander, you might also be wondering about the impact sexting has on the relationship itself.
Yeah, the dynamics.
Does it change how someone sees you? Especially if you're hoping maybe for something serious to develop. This was right at the heart of our original Reddit poster's concerns.
It absolutely was. And that Reddit thread, it really captured that anxiety. The original poster, remember, she was worried that providing this kind of virtual gratification might make her crush less likely to want to spend time with me in person.
Right. Or that he might see her as easy.
Exactly. And some other users on Reddit definitely echoed those concerns. Suggestions that freely sharing explicit images could, ruin chances for something deeper.
Or that maybe your perceived value goes all the way down in the eyes of the person you sent them to.
Right. Those narratives are out there.
It feels like a valid concern, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Especially given some societal narratives around this stuff. But there was also a strong opposing view in that thread.
Oh, definitely. Other users really push back hard. saying things like sexting has nothing to do with exclusivity or how serious you are, and that if a guy does judge a woman for engaging in it, well, then he's not the kind of man I want to date anyway.
Yeah, that perspective really emphasizes, like, personal agency and using it as a filter, maybe. Filtering out judgmental partners.
Precisely. And all of this just highlights the absolute paramount importance of individual comfort and genuine consent. You know, one cyberbullying expert we consulted pointed out that in today's kind of sex on tap culture, as they put it, particularly for young women, there can often be some sort of pressure to give something sexually that they're not comfortable doing.
Yeah, that pressure is real.
It is. And it's just such a crucial reminder that your personal comfort, feeling unpressured, that should always be the guiding factor in any intimate interaction, digital or otherwise.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the legal implications of sexting.
Yeah.
We're using New York State here as our specific case study.
Right.
Because this is where the consequences can become very, very serious. We're moving way beyond personal worries about reputation or relationship dynamics now.
Yeah, this is crucial. And it's important to clarify right up front. Sexting between two consenting adults, generally legal in New York, no crime there.
Okay, good baseline.
However, that legal framework changes dramatically and becomes extremely strict the moment consent is violated. Or even more critically, when minors are involved.
Right.
For adults violating consent, there's a specific crime. It's called unlawful dissemination or publication of an intimate image.
Okay, so let's zoom in on that one for adults first. Unlawful dissemination. What does that felony charge actually mean? What triggers it? What should someone be incredibly careful about?
So it's not just, casually sharing a picture someone sent you. The law is very specific here. This felony charge applies if you intentionally share an intimate image.
Intentionally.
Right. With the intent to cause harm. And that harm could be emotional, financial, even physical.
Okay, intent to harm is key.
Yes. And the person in the photo has to be clearly identifiable. And crucially, you knew they didn't consent to you sharing it like that.
Knew they didn't consent, okay.
And yeah, the law defines intimate part very clearly: naked genitals, pubic area, anus, female nipple. And it explicitly includes images that have been digitally altered too, like deepfakes or photoshops.
Got it. So it really hinges on that combination.
Yeah.
Intent to harm, the person is identifiable, and there's a clear lack of consent for that specific sharing. That's the trifecta for the felony.
That's the trifecta for adults, yes. And then, as you alluded to, it gets significantly more severe when minors enter the picture.
Right. This is where it gets really serious.
It does. Sexting with a minor, or even between minors, is illegal under New York's child pornography and obscenity laws. And these carry heavy felony penalties.
Yeah.
These laws, I should say, were primarily put in place to protect children from adult predators, and the courts apply them with real seriousness.
And the potential sentences. They're stark, aren't they?
They are. Just to give you a sense, sending legally defined obscene material to someone under 17, that's a felony, could lead to up to 4 years in prison.
4 years.
Or even 7 years if the material was used to solicit sexual activity.
Wow.
And then creating or sharing child pornography images, which includes images depicting sexual conduct by a child under 17. And yes, that can include a selfie a minor takes and sends of themselves.
Even a selfie they took themselves.
Yes, legally, it can fall under that definition. That's also a felony. And now we're talking potential sentences of up to 7 or even 15 years in prison, plus potential $5,000 fines on top of that.
15 years. I mean, the consequences are truly life-altering.
Absolutely life-altering. Now, given how severe these penalties are, an important question often comes up. What about teens themselves? If two teens are sexting each other.
Right. Does a 16-year-old face 15 years for sending a selfie to their 17-year-old partner?
Well, New York does have a specific path for that situation. It's a diversion program. It's for teens under 20, provided they're no more than 5 years apart in age.
Okay.
And this allows them to attend an educational program focused on the consequences instead of facing criminal prosecution and a felony record.
So an educational alternative for teens close in age.
Exactly. And this is a critical distinction, adults convicted of these offenses, especially those involving minors, they are often required to register as sex offenders, which has lifelong implications.
Lifelong. And we've seen real-world examples that highlight just how serious this is, right?
Right.
They were that case in the sources.
Yes. The recent case involving Anna Maria Milazzo in upstate New York. She was 22, a former school employee.
Right.
And she was charged with a felony and a misdemeanor. The allegation was sending nude photos of herself to a 14-year-old boy over a 3-month period.
Okay, so that clearly falls into that severe end of the legal spectrum we just described.
Yeah.
Adult involved with a minor.
Precisely. It's a very stark reminder of the legal lines. Hashtag tag tag outro.
So wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, haven't we?
We really have.
We've explored just how surprisingly common sexting is, the really complex motivations behind why people do it.
The fun, the connection, the pressure.
Right. And then the very real risks to privacy, to reputation.
That virtual slander idea.
Yeah. And the nuanced impact it can have on relationships, on self-perception.
And finally, those serious legal consequences that can arise, especially when minors are involved or when consent gets violated.
It just seems so clear that while sexting is, a prevalent part of how people interact digitally now,
It really is.
it is absolutely not without significant pitfalls, huge ones. Understanding these risks seems essential.
Totally essential. From, personal shame or awkward relationship dynamics all the way to severe legal repercussions. It's vital info for anyone navigating the digital landscape today.
So reflecting on all this, what really stands out to you from this deep dive? For me, maybe it's that shocking statistic about leaks. 3/4.
Yeah, the leak statistic is definitely sobering. For me, maybe it's the sharp legal lines, especially around minors and consent. How quickly it can shift from legal to a serious felony. And ultimately, I think this whole conversation raises a really important question for you, the listener, to consider.
Yeah.
In a world where this kind of digital intimacy is just so accessible, so common, how do you personally weigh that desire, the desire for connection, for self-expression, against the potential vulnerabilities, the risks of sharing these intimate moments online?
That's a heavy question. What boundaries will you draw for yourself?
Exactly. What boundaries will you draw? Something to think about.